Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
From multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass right there.
We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast.
Hello, friends. It's episode 22 of the Operator Podcast. I'm Robert J. O'Neill. I am your host, and today we had a plan. We were going to talk about a little bit of the history of Al-Qaeda, how that group came about, their founder and leader, Osama bin Laden. Because last week, episode 21, we talked about Afghanistan. We talked a little bit about, well, I wouldn't so much as say who fought in Afghanistan, but who hasn't fought in Afghanistan. People have been fighting there forever because it is a major gateway, a trade route from Asia to Europe, and a lot of people have been in Afghanistan. And a lot of these tribes have been around since before a lot of stuff that we know. I've been to Afghanistan quite a few times. I've studied a lot about Afghanistan and the culture, and a little bit about some of the different reasons people fight, some of the different ideologies, some of the different bureaucracies, how ideologies clash, and how a lot of us end up in Afghanistan. And there's a big difference between Afghanistan and a lot of different places in the world. We always seem, we being the United States, sometimes the coalition, the West, we find ourselves in different spots, and we say it's, whatever bullshit about defending democracy and slowing the spread of communism. We launder a lot of money. We go to places that we're interested in that host a lot of energy, and we find ourselves in fights there. But the people have been there. They put up with a lot of us. There are people in Afghanistan who thought that 9/11 was a response to the American invasion of Afghanistan. There are people that saw us in Afghanistan and were wondering why the Russians were back, or if the Russians ever left. You ever heard that story of the Japanese dudes on the island that fought World War II until like the 80s or whatever? Just him and Pac-Man on the damn thing. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Afghanistan. We were going to go into the history of Al-Qaeda, but Afghanistan keeps making noise. And when I bring up the bureaucracies like Afghanistan, the response to 9/11 is the first time that we invoked the Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty. We did go into that. And it just, how it's a just fight and how we eventually screwed it up, because we have a tendency to screw a lot of things up. And why Al-Qaeda hates us. And it's, it's not as complex. Most things aren't as complex as you think they are. I mean, they could hate us because we're a bunch of assholes, which could be true. We hate them because they're assholes too. They attacked us, and but they see that we kind of invaded their land. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and where a lot of it comes from. Believe it or not, a lot of the reason people fight, other than oil and energy and riches and personal power and politicians and bureaucracies, they fight because of religion. And where it goes back to fighting over which God told which prophet what. And I'm not trying to simplify prophets. Everyone from Jeremiah to Isaac, what the prophet Muhammad heard from the word of God. And somewhere along the lines, as the word of God went from prophets' ears out of their mouths to other people, it's not just a religion, if you notice. It's not just Christianity. It's not just Islam. They branch off into different stuff, and it's usually because man screwed it up and man said something, and it was because of their best interest. Some of these religions that we have in the United States now is because some king, I'm not going into it, but some king somewhere couldn't divorce his wife, and so, he killed her. I don't know what she did to deserve that, but it was something. And then they form different religions so they can divorce and marry people. And then, word gets passed on. It's like the little games you play in when you're in kindergarten and someone whispers one thing to someone, it goes down the line, it comes back something completely different. I'm sure that what God said to the prophet is exactly what we're reading and hearing today, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's not as simplified as one religion or the other religion. So man gets involved, and Afghanistan seems to be in the middle. I was going to talk about Al-Qaeda. Afghanistan's making headlines again today. I'm going to touch on that too. And also I get hit a lot with conspiracy theories because I get on Mikuya, at Mikuya, and I monitor that on Instagram and Twitter. And I have the Operator Podcast on Instagram. That one is more prone to be answered professionally with Mikuya. I just have more fun with that one. But I always say, what would you like to hear? What should we talk about? And a big one coming out recently, and I think you might have noticed, and don't get me wrong, man, I am entertained like a son of a bitch. But the UFOs, a lot of conspiracies are coming out, and I watch them, man, and there's some crazy shit. It almost makes me wonder, like people said, you were on the mission to go into Pakistan and kill bin Laden. It's like, well, as far as I know, I got in a helicopter out of what I think was Jalalabad, Afghanistan. I was told that, and I got off the ground that I told was Pakistan. Damn, dog. These conspiracies are everywhere, and I like to touch on those because they're fun. But like a conspiracy I get asked about like a lot is dumping bin Laden's body at sea. Did you do it? Did we do it? Did it really happen? And then, of course, people always go back to, well, you didn't kill him. We didn't really kill him. It was all a hoax. And 9/11 was an inside job. And they always throw this at us. And how do you know it was bin Laden, not a body double? And how about this? Why'd you? And I'm at the point like, look, man, keep it simple. I was told by a team that found bin Laden that he was in this house. This guy that's kick-ass is going to fly you guys there. Go upstairs. He's on the 3rd floor. If you want to kill him, kill him. That was it. I didn't plan it. I mean, they told us what it looked like on the ground, and as tactical minds, we came up with what to do, but it's not like I'm in on the conspiracies. I also don't buy them, but they are kind of fun to get into. Like there's a clip going around, doing both. It's going around and coming around if it's a round planet, but if it's flat, God knows where it's coming from. But there's one of Buzz Aldrin, who allegedly went to the moon with their crew. And someone was interviewing him, and he was taking a little Q&A from the audience, which to me is the most fun. When I'm on stage and we do Q&A, I love it because I dare people. Ask me something I haven't heard. Like, seriously, hit me with it. But, it's very, very rare. But someone asked Buzz Aldrin, what was the most dangerous part of the mission to the moon? And he said, that we didn't go. And she's like, what? What do you mean? No, what was the most dangerous part of the mission? He says, it never happened. The mission didn't happen. Which I think Buzz Aldrin was at the age where he just didn't care anymore. And it's like the age where you stop getting your hip replaced because it just doesn't matter. Where the doctor looks at you and you say, my knee hurts, doc. What do we do? He's like, kind of just go with it from here. You got one knee in the grave as far as I'm concerned. But Buzz said that. So conspiracy theories. But one that kind of irks me is people, and not only do they, I don't know if they know I'm going to respond or think I won't respond, but I always get hit with the 9/11 was an inside job. And look at George Bush when he's sitting there in the classroom, and he didn't do anything, and he was afraid, but the Bushes did it, and all the way back to Reagan, and it's the one. I've been invited to. There's a thing called Bohemian Grove. Twice I've been invited, and that's apparently a place in California where a bunch of dudes that run the world, the New World Order, get together, and there's no women, and no one knows what they do, and like they said, there's no booze or drugs, which for me, we got a bunch of dudes in the bushes with no booze or drugs. What are we going to introduce ourselves? Navy shit, I guess. But I was invited to that twice. I don't know where I'm going with this. And one of my regrets, like I get asked all the time, what are your regrets in life? I didn't go. That's a regret. I want to know exactly what's happening at Bohemian Grove. And like all that shit when you fold the dollar bills up and you can see the towers. And when George Bush was in that classroom and they were saying something about hit, steal, burn, the kids were reading that, and George Bush hears from Andy Carr that we're under attack. But because we're so far away of it, and a lot of the people who were throwing this shit around are so far removed, and they weren't there on that Tuesday morning when it happened, when all of a sudden everyone's on board with freedom and everyone's afraid of Al-Qaeda and everyone knows it happened. Nowadays, it's like, it was an inside job. It had to happen. We did it to ourselves. And I think, personally, and again, wasn't part of the planning, but I'm just saying it's a little insulting to people who lost people, for people that made that phone call that cut off when the plane hit the South Tower, the people saying we can't breathe and we're going to die, and the 911 responder as having her pray with her, and then the people that jumped out of the tower, which happened. And that's a horrible decision. You need to look down and make a decision as people behind you are cramming to get you out of the windows on the world because they can't breathe either, and we're going to fall and just grabbing a hand and jumping for it. Seeing the dude that actually held up a tablecloth, like maybe it'll work as a parachute, which obviously it didn't. It's insulting to the passengers on Flight 93 that fought Al-Qaeda, that voted, for the people that were screaming and crying that'll never see their loved ones again. So I think before you start throwing around a lot of these conspiracy theories that, hey, look, Buzz Aldrin, God rest his soul, if they didn't go and he said so, fuck it. He didn't go, they didn't go, that's fine. I think we went. But I mean, we do have the technology, don't we, maybe to see with some of these high-speed telescopes. Isn't there shit on the moon with mirrors and whatnot where they're shooting lasers from Arizona, a laboratory, if you will? I said laboratory because I was on Piers Morgan's show yesterday. I think laboratory is cool. And by the way, I'm spelling valor with a U in it now, valor. Anyway, I think you should be able to prove it. But the 9/11 thing bothers me because of that, because of the disrespect for what people went through, what families are still going through every September 11th when they read the names. It happened. It really happened. And I don't think it was an inside job. Here's how I got there. We can all agree on this, right? Anything run by the government sucks. And most of you conspiracy theories that I hope are listening to this, because I'm all about the ratings, baby. But most government agencies suck. And if you want to get less efficient, have the government run it. My analogy, because you always hear about free healthcare, and we should have the government run the healthcare, and government this, and they should bail us out. Here is what, and you may have heard me say this before. Here's the way to tell how the government would run it. Think of your best experience at the DMV. Your best experience. That's what the fucking government does. That's government right there. Can't do anything. No, sir. No, sir, you need to calm down. No, get in that line. Here's a piece of paper. You should have been here 2 hours ago. Sign this to get in that line. Okay, that's it. So government is very, very inefficient. Government workers are very, very inefficient because in the bureaucracy, and we talk about bureaucracy, people cannot get fired when you work for the government. So there's no accountability whatsoever, and you will not get promoted because you do well. It's like in the movie Big with Tom Hanks when he saw Zoltar and he wished to be big, and all of a sudden he's working in that cubicle up in New York, and he's just busting his ass, and everyone's saying, hey, what are you trying to do, make us look bad? Working harder is not going to get you promoted. They promote for different reasons that I'm not going to touch, and you can't get fired. So there's no accountability, and the only time they really give you a solid answer is when they tell you they're going on break. So government's not efficient. So if you're telling me the government did not... Now, look, I listen to other conspiracy theories, and I hear people on these kick-ass, shadowy... I love watching reels on Instagram because, boy, that algorithm gets you, and you get into the dark web, and I see some shit I don't need to see, and I pray that some of it's not real because people can be bad. But you get into stuff where... I remember seeing some dude saying he worked for the CIA, and we have this technology where and the guy goes, where you can see my license if I'm holding it? And he goes, oh, no, I can see through your walls. I can see what type of termites you have, and that's what we had in the 60s. Imagine what we have now. No, you fucking didn't. Come on. The best goddamn drone we had, we found bin Laden with. It was at 30,000 feet, and then they crashed it in Iran. That's what we got. It didn't see us inside, and we didn't wear cameras for that reason. Because you don't need to know or see how justice was served. Just trust us. That's what happened. But it's fun to watch, and I do like to see those. I believe some of those crazy assholes with the UFOs. That shit's got to be real, right? Velcro. We didn't invent Velcro. We're not that smart. So UFOs, flat Earth, conspiracies, 9/11. Here's why 9/11 was not an inside job. Because you're telling me that in these 2,000-foot towers, you know how much, I've done breaching, I've done explosives, taken down walls, see what works on fences, what det cord doesn't blow up, how to use C2, C3, C4, C6, that good shit, and how explosions and thing goes boom, shit goes bad, and if you can't get the calc, when in doubt, overload, boom. Just get away from it, and if the charge can see you, you can see it, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying? But it takes a lot of explosives, especially cutting charges, different directions to cut trees down, let alone the beams that it would take to take down one of the towers. And that other building that went down after the towers fell, and some dude said, yeah, we had to pull that. I'd love to get into that. I haven't looked into that. That's odd, but I mean, those two big towers coming down and just the base of everything, who knows what happened. I know money's stored there, but money's stored everywhere. Not getting into that one tonight. But back to government workers. You mean to tell me that government employees, and I don't give a shit if it's the CIA, government employees went in to both towers every single day long enough to put enough explosives on the interior beams in order to implode both towers, and nobody noticed. Karen at the front desk on every building didn't notice one time some dude shouldn't have been there. What are they wearing? Did they come in as construction workers? Find out if they were construction. How much explosives would that have taken in order to implode those? Who was flying those planes that we all saw? You know, I don't think that government workers could have pulled it off. I really don't. I don't think we possess that capability. I think it was exactly what it sounds like, because think about this. Before 9/11, when planes got hijacked, they would say, we are going to land and our demands are going to be met. Why would you fight? I'm not fighting these dudes. They could crash the damn thing. So the first few, they brought on Play-Doh that looked like an explosive vest. Suicide bombing had become popular in some of the uprisings in Israel. They'd done it before a couple times. I mean, suicide bombings are so common right now, we don't even bat an eye with it. That tells you how crazy religion is right there. Put that in your pipe. But if there's someone wearing Play-Doh and you can't necessarily tell that it's real or not, but they have a history of landing and dealing with at least releasing some hostages. I'm not going to, I'm not saying, God forbid, I say I won't fight, because I know a lot of couch commandos out there are going to say, oh, run towards the sound of the gun. My bad. I would have fought him, but I wasn't. I was in Germany. I just finished in Kosovo. Thank you. But what I'm saying is, because suicide bombers weren't the norm yet, yes, I think that they're going to let them fly the plane, and the guys in the back don't know what they're doing, and they're going to martyr themselves. The only ones that really knew they were going to kill themselves were, I think, Muhammad Atta. Was it Marwan al-Shihi? Something. Well, who gives a shit? These fucking guys. I don't think they even told their muscle guys in the back that were beating people. So they're playing the head fake. They're playing the bluff, but they're playing the deterrent type thing where you got to realize word didn't get to the first three planes that they were martyrs, that they were suicide bombers until Flight 93. And the passengers on United Flight 93 got wind. So what did they do? They attacked and then it went down in Shanksville. They fought them. So I guess what I'm getting at is I don't think we possess the operators to take down towers with explosives and decord and what it takes. And what are they outside at the friggin' Marriott or Burger King with the big Bugs Bunny plunger? Where was the initiator? So where did the manifests on the flights go? What did the families say? So 9/11 wasn't an inside job. But like I said, here's another good example of why I love conspiracies. Because, okay, we all enjoy watching this shit, but you can't believe it. Here's the example. I get a kick. I love scary movies because of the thrill. I totally dig the ghost shit and the guy in the house. Even though it's your wife there pulling a cord that makes a chandelier and you talk about Jesus, but you can hear Mike Lindell and My Pillow on the radio. I get a kick about there's a show, Ghost Stories, right? I think it's in its 15th season. Popular. It's awesome. I love it. I watch it. You know the only thing that hasn't been on that show in 15 seasons? A fucking ghost. Not one ghost. They have no proof of it. But we watch because we want to believe, but there's no proof. And whatever, I know we have to have faith in everything and believe, but I mean, there hasn't been a ghost on Ghost Humpers and dummies like me who watch it, by the way. And that dude, Zach, that runs it, yeah, good on him, man. I'd be on that show. I bet we could do a show, and he could scare me with nothing. You know why? 'Cause here's how awesome this show is, and here's how awesome we are as people when we put our minds into being creative. This dude is a demonologist. I'm going to let that one sink in. A demonologist. Where do you go for school for that? The University of Satan somewhere. A demonologist. I mean, that's like someone that specializes in I thought they specialized in skin and hair and nails and psoriasis, melanoma and shit. That's a dermatologist. Anyway, we believe in shit that's fun, but I mean, a lot of it can't be too serious because our government's not that good. But that comes with, don't trust me, do your own research, get multiple sources, thinking clearly. On that too, you've been seeing that keto diet craze for ketones, like it's a natural super fuel that your body makes after you fast for a long time. I don't have time for that. I tried this stuff last week. It's called Ketone IQ, and thanks to modern science, it's drinkable ketones, and you can get them with a bottle that you drink, or I like the little shots. And as soon as I take it, I get more energy. I'm thinking more clearly. It's like starting the day with a push in the right direction. Believe it or not, it makes me clearer and funnier, if that's a word. But you can find these. Check out Ketone IQ at hvmn.com, and use code THEOPERATOR, and you will get 20% off. Get some of these drinkable ketones. Start your day off the right direction. I can't promise it'll make you better looking, but it worked for me. So that's hvmn.com to get Ketone IQ. Use the code THEOPERATOR. Yeah, but the conspiracy theories and the way we let our minds run, and it is fun. But I mean, some of them you believe, but some of them are crazy. Have you seen the ones with the lizard people? And they have footage of some of the Secret Service or lizard people, like a lizard guy or whatever. I've worked with the Secret Service before, and they do have. I don't want to get into their shit, but they do have some tactics that I think have been shown. I'm not going to say. I've never met. Again, it's like with the Secret Service, Jason Bourne, I can see through the wall shit that isn't real, but you want to believe it. I've yet to meet a lizard person, and I have met a lot of politicians, and I've spent some time on Capitol Hill. One of my first jobs was in D.C. on Capitol Hill, and some of them eat like pigs, but I've never seen a lizard person. But those are some of the conspiracy. Okay, it was ghost hunters, not ghost stories, and the reason that threw me off a little is I mentioned Tom Hanks in the movie Big and Zoltan because his character was Josh Baskin. I don't have my producer here with me, so bear with me. I'm trying to get fast. So Josh Baskin was the kid in the movie Big, portrayed by Tom Hanks, and then Zach Baggins is the demonologist in Ghost Hunters, not Ghost Stories. Again, great show. Beelzebub Technical College for whatever for being a demonologist. But those are the things too that are fun, and it is an adrenaline rush to get scared. I know a lot of guys don't get scared. For me, it's kind of fun. Watch a scary movie. The movie Smile was crazy. I really liked it. A lot of people said it wasn't realistic. Okay, it wasn't, but it's fun. But getting scared about certain shit. That's why we believe stuff on the internet. Another one too that the internet and movies have screwed us before, because you don't need to be afraid of them. And I mention sharks all the time. When you get in the ocean, if we were going to get attacked by sharks, there would be shark attacks every single day if we were on the menu. I've done some stuff before, and Peter Benchley's Jaws made it look bad for sharks, and I'm probably repeating myself. You don't need to be afraid of sharks. It's they're not going to hurt you, but there is that fear, you have to admit. A lot of people, I've read Navy SEALs books, and I've heard interviews where they were worried about the 2-mile ocean swim, and once they got done, they were just saying, well, thank God we're done with another 2-mile ocean swim. I don't need to worry about getting eaten by sharks, even though we only swim outside of the right outside the surf zone where the water breaks, but the waves break. But that is where sharks live too, so they are there. And if you've ever been to the ocean, you've had a positive encounter with sharks. I did a lot of diving with. I've been in the water with great whites. I've seen them up close. They've seen great whites have seen me more than I've seen them. I've been, without a cage with tigers and great hammerheads and lemon sharks and reef sharks and shit like that. Bull sharks. Now, the bull sharks are not a conspiracy. They fuck a bull shark. Those things are mean, and they know it. That's the fuck you shark. That's the shark that just didn't quite make it out of the tough neighborhood he grew in, and he'll bite you. I got kind of cocky one day, and I didn't want to believe. I wanted to think that they were all conspiracy theories, and I actually almost got my head bitten off by a bull shark. We were in the Bahamas in Bimini, right off the dock, where there's signs that say "Don't dive in here." We did, and I was saved by Andy Casagrande. Andy saved me. ABC4 Explorer. He's awesome. Andy saved my ass. He put he's like a safety diver for sharks, has like a broomstick or something like that. And anyway, he saved me. So some sharks are a group of sharks is bad. The rest of them are fine. I learned a lot of stuff with Andy too. I learned about the when I was talking about the sharks are just kind of off the coast, like right off the breakers. I learned about some of the deepest diving animals in the water. You know that I think definitely top 3 deepest diving mammal is an elephant seal. I learned that when we were down off Isla Guadalupe in Mexico. And Andy told me, Andy Brandy Casagrande, He told me that an elephant seal, I believe the furthest they've gone down is, I want to say, close to 8,000 feet, and they can dive for 60 minutes. And I guess the reason that they can dive so deep is because of some myoglobin or myoglobin, something in their blood, and the pressure and the temperature down there. There's like a no man's land right around 700 feet or something like that, but they go down to about 8,000 feet, 7,800 feet. And because of the blubber and some science and like they when a big elephant seal needs to avoid great whites, it'll go deeper than a great white. A great white doesn't. There's a record on how deep they dive. The deepest diving great white is something like 2,000 feet. And again, don't trust me. Look it up for yourself. But I think it's about right. If I'm wrong, get into the comment section and tell me what a dickhead I am. On Twitter, at least, tell me what a dickhead I am. That's what Twitter does. But yeah, so the lizard people aren't real. Zach Baggins is awesome. So is the ghost hunters. And then sharks. Sharks are your friends. Don't worry about them. So we were going to get into Afghanistan. Well, we did get into Afghanistan. We've talked about that before, and I wanted to get into the history of Al-Qaeda and the difference between Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and different stuff like that. And here I am getting all excited to do a podcast about Al-Qaeda and terrorism and the difference between certain sects of Islam, and we can talk about that too. And then all of a sudden, this dude writes a book, and this dude served in Afghanistan for 2 tours, and he's part of the royal family, and his name is Prince Harry. So I got to bring him up because he just I don't know if I'm going to read the book. I might read the book. You guys have heard about Prince Harry, I'm sure, and what's going on with Prince William, his brother, who will be the king. And I don't know if I necessarily need to read it because I am married to Jessica, and Jessica will read it a few times and will talk about it. I'm going to hear about it. I'm going to know about it to the point where I'm going to have to try to get some sort of cliff notes just so I don't run out of talking points. But like, I think, I want to give Prince Harry the benefit of the doubt because I think he and I have quite a bit in common, right? We, according to the stories and my upbringing, here's what we have in common. We've both been beaten up by our brothers. We both have killed Taliban. And in our families, the women wear the pants. It's pretty obvious who's in charge if you see that. But he got in some trouble recently because he said that he killed Taliban when he was flying, a gunner / co-pilot for an Apache, which is an attack helicopter, which is the nicest way to say a helicopter that kills you. It shoots Hellfire missiles. Hellfire. I mean, that's not an accident. Sidewinders, air-to-surface missiles. It's there to kill. And he was asked something on in his book, he mentions he killed Taliban, and they said he killed 25. And he was saying, though, that he can separate it because he needs to disassociate. The Army taught him to disassociate with the human element, and they were more like chess pieces. And I was recently on with Piers Morgan on TV and a couple other guys on a panel, and they asked me about, is it insulting? He compared killing Taliban to chess pieces, and I said, sort of insulting to the chess pieces, because I have respect for chess. I mean, he's killing the bad guys, and I responded with, if he's killing the bad guys, as far as killing 25, I wish he would have killed more. He's in an attack helicopter, and he's shooting bad guys, and the only reason that Apaches get good intelligence, or they're getting call for fire from guys on the ground that are, he's in Helmand province near Kandahar, the capital of the Taliban. And if Apache rolls in 2 years, he gets 25 kills. That's pretty good. It's not that bad, but everyone's up in arms now because there's, if you can believe it, there are people in Afghanistan saying that 8 members of my family were killed by the brutal British airstrikes, and now we want compensation. First of all, I've never been in that situation where I had to live with attack helicopters flying over me. That's got to be scary as hell. And for the innocent people that just happen to be in that part of the world, that fucking sucks, man. I don't know what it's like, and I'm not trying to make light of that. But the people who are speaking out and saying they want compensation, that's what people always say. Those guys are a lot of those guys are criminals over there. A lot of those guys are taking advantage of the money that we send them. There were, when we would do night raids in Afghanistan, we'd leave, and then the poor dudes the next day from the conventional forces that had to roll up, they didn't know what happened, and the people that might not have even been in the house were saying, yeah, they blew up my door and they killed 3 of my relatives that aren't here, and now we need $10,000 cash. There's a bit of corruption in Afghanistan. We did cover that a little bit, but every time you do something like that, and even right now they're saying, yeah, he was here and he was bad. Now we need compensation. Of course you do. We're gone. We left. Forget about it. But, they're saying they want the compensation. In Afghanistan, well, in actually most places, and I'm looking right at you, America, when you start giving money to the government, it doesn't all go where it's supposed to go. There is a lot of corruption in a lot of different places. And we start funding money. A lot of your aid doesn't get to the people. It gets to the politicians or the dictators who happen to be above them, or the shadow governors, or the brother of the shadow governor that he appointed as the czar of the poppy fields, or whatever he does. But they want compensation because here's who came out and said it. Apparently, we offended someone from the Haqqani family. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Haqqani family, but to put it nice, they're a bunch of assholes. This family, they were designated a terrorist group, this family, right around the start of the war in Afghanistan. But they've been operating over there. We were funding them. The United States of America, was funding the Haqqani network. The president was Ronald Reagan. Charlie Wilson, I mentioned him last time. He was a congressman through Gus Avrakatos. The Haqqani network were major players here, major recipients of the funding that we sent to help the Afghan people. A lot of it was aid and to rebuild the economy, and I'm sure it all got there. It didn't go to the Haqqani family. But that was part of the Mujahideen fighting the Russians, and obviously because the Russians are going to be our enemies forever, and they're the communists, and I'll be damned if we're not spreading democracy, we're stopping communism, so we're pumping money and stingers and whatnot in there. Got to the Haqqani network. We're helping the Soviets. We're helping the Haqqani network fight the Soviets. And these are Mujahideen. And they're assholes. And yes, they're hard-line Sharia law, which is Islamic law, dudes that they're saying they want to, they're partnered with the Taliban. They basically are the Taliban. Some of these Haqqani guys were in the Doha negotiations when we all went to Qatar to negotiate, because that was a sweet deal. Allah's eyes don't shine here, so Haqqani and Taliban can roll over here and, just saying, booze, hookers, that's all there. Allah doesn't see it. But so they were there in the beginning, I think in the 70s, and then when the Russians invaded, the Haqqani network was there, and then they helped the Taliban, and then we're there, and they hate us. And they're pretty much in eastern Afghanistan, but they're also in Pakistan mainly. And they're not just Taliban. They're criminals, man. Yes, they're going to enforce Sharia law on you, hopefully not you. Jeez, I hope wherever you're listening to this, you're not anywhere near that, for goodness sake. But so they're the harsh Sharia law. They can keep people oppressed with that, keep them dependent on them for that. But they're also they're trafficking all kinds of stuff. Yes, drugs. But when I say the word trafficking, it goes hand in glove with the word groomer. Man Love Thursday. They're doing that. They're pushing shit, poppies, drugs, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, part of the Haqqani network, the father had a son and that son had a father. This kid, whatever, he came out, he said that he was offended because some of these fighters that the prince killed, they had families to go back to too, so they need to be compensated. So these terrorists are now telling us they need to be compensated for someone from the royal family flying an attack helicopter did and killed a bunch of their guys because they had families too, so we better fund them. And this world is so fucking backwards right now, it wouldn't surprise me if we just started funding the Haqqani network because their feelings were hurt. That's kind of where we're at. I mean, we're at a point right now, if you think about it. Some of these people, and I'm not saying politically or religiously where they are, think about this, and I'm going to talk a little slower so I can process what I'm saying. There are such blatant lies being told to you right now that it's like, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Right in front of you, and if you tell the truth, they're going to blame you and call you a name for something that is so, but it's like the whole believe the science, not the science that I say is science. Anyway, wouldn't surprise me at all if we just started paying people because we offended them because someone shot missiles at someone else a long time ago. And that was that. And I was talking to Piers Morgan about it, and they asked, because there's something else. And again, I haven't read the book, and I know I'm talking about it. I'm going to end up reading the damn thing. They said there's a part where Prince Harry went home, and I don't even know what age they were, but he said Prince William, soon to be King William or whatever. They actually, the name of the book is Spare, because Prince Harry is so convinced he was born for spare parts in case something happened to Willie. So they could just, hey, you need that pancreas? Thanks, dog. Boom. New king. But they said he came home and he got in a fight with with his brother William, and I said he threw me to the ground or whatever he said, and there's something about a broken necklace, and then I was asked if my brother beat me up, and he threw me to the ground and broke my necklace, would I tell anybody for money, or would that be so embarrassing I wouldn't say it? I'm like, dude, I think I became a Navy SEAL because I got beat up so much by my brother Tom. And then when I came back, I could beat the crap out of him. And I'll tell you what, man, I'll rub some dirt in his face and be the bully myself, or I'll be bullied too, if depending on how much money's in the contract or whatever. But yeah, now that I'm talking about it, I have to get into it. But yeah, everything is so backwards. It reminds me of there was a thing I heard. You remember the great toilet paper debacle of 2020, and you kind of only have a little bit at a time. Like you gotta ration, even though toilet paper is not a survival mechanism. It's just nice to have. But a lot of people were rationing their toilet paper. And I was talking to my dad, and he told me something. He's like, "Yeah, there's you can save a lot of effort and a lot of your supplies if you just blow your nose in the toilet paper and then wipe your ass with it. We call that in prison the Alabama wet one." So we're touching on a lot of things here, some more intimate than the others. Kind of like when you go to the bathroom, you always want to close the door for the privacy. You don't want some passerby to come in and see what you're doing. Well, using the internet without ExpressVPN is like going into the bathroom and not closing the door. Did you know that your internet provider knows every single website that you visit, and they can sell it to tech giants who will give you those pop-ups that you hate, the ads? ExpressVPN puts a stop to this. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so that your activity cannot be seen by anyone. I use ExpressVPN on all my devices, my MacBooks, my tablet, my iPhone. And it's not just having the security. I love the thought of having the security, and it's great. And the best part, using ExpressVPN is as easy as closing the bathroom door. Just fire up the app, click one button, and you're protected. ExpressVPN is the world's #1 rated VPN by Mashable, The Verge, and countless others. So if you're like me and believe your online activity is your business, secure yourself by visiting expressvpn.com/theoperator. Today, use my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/theoperator. And you can get an extra 3 months free. That's expressvpn.com/theoperator. But regardless of the plan, for some reason, we always end up back in Afghanistan. We always end up talking about Afghanistan. I want to go into the history of Al-Qaeda and the beliefs behind it, but I just find myself going off on tangents and talking about stuff I remember. And that's, again, fitting because that's kind of what we did in Afghanistan from the beginning. And not even our beginning, but when we started supporting the Mujahideen fighting the Russians. We were funneling so much money in there in the 80s. There were lawmakers. I think there was a quote. I have a couple notes written there that we said something along the lines of, so what if the price of ending the Cold War is supporting a few wound up Muslims? And they just kind of lumped everybody in there. And Saudi Arabia was doing the same thing. They There's a strain of radical Islam, Wahhabism, in Saudi Arabia. It started there. Again, another conversation at a different time. But Saudi Arabia was matching whatever money we threw into Afghanistan in the 80s against the Russians. They were matching it. And then it was all going through Karachi into Pakistan, and so it all got to Afghanistan. But they were having their trouble in Saudi Arabia with these Wahhabis. So they were sending them, they're just kicking them out of Saudi Arabia, sending them to the mountains of Afghanistan to fight against the infidels at the time, which were the Russians, and then it was us. But Saudi Arabia was getting rid of stuff. We're funding people that eventually is going to come back to bite us in the ass because we're trying to get rid of the Russians. And again, it's one big rotation, and this just keeps going on and on. And it's one of those things where when we invoked Article 5 of NATO, and we went in there, and I've said before that a lot of our problems with a lot of our leaders is, especially at some of the schools. I've never been to the Naval War College. I'm sure it's awesome. I'm sure there's some amazing history there, but I don't think even at the service academies, I'd be willing to bet, they don't teach winning. They teach leadership. They teach how to get in line, but they don't teach how to win. And I'm pretty sure, I don't have a degree, but my whopping 12 credits I got at Montana Tech at the University of Montana. I think even I can read enough to know the strategists are taught never start a war that you don't have a plan to end. And we didn't do that. We just kind of jumped in there. And I think a way to put this, someone said that, you hear, I'm not a tough guy, but you hear tough guys, legitimate tough guys will say, when they talk, the safest fight, like in the streets, the safest fight you can get into is the one you don't get into, the one you walk away from. Just because you never know what could happen. You never know if someone's going to pull a gun or you're going to hit your head on something and they die and you go to prison, or you die or you get maimed. And you don't know what someone's capable of. Someone tougher than me said, never get in a fist fight with someone you don't know, which is true. But for some reason, we always end up in Afghanistan, talking about Afghanistan. I was on social media, and I'm reading a lot. Some quotes that I say, I don't mean to not give credit in the proper place, but I get asked a lot about the Canadian Special Forces. We worked quite a bit with the Canadians. And someone in a book that I was reading, he was giving an after-action report, and I think he might have been a Brit, because we worked a lot with the Brits. The Special Boat Service, actually, the SBS, which is the Royal Marines. You got to be a Royal Marine, and then you go to the Special Boat Service, as opposed to the SAS, Special Air Service. That's like Army and Navy, Navy SEALs, Delta, SAS, SBS. One of the Special Boat Service guys described the Canadian Special Forces as the deadliest bunch in town, but also the friendliest, which I think is awesome. And so we actually worked with the Canadians quite a bit, and it was kind of cool to work with them. A lot of guys were close to where I grew up in Montana. Canada and Montana border, but it's a big country, and Montana's a big state. Like, you can be in a part of Montana and drive that way for 10 hours and you're still in Montana. But we worked with them. And I think, so we were in Kandahar. I'm talking about Kandahar in Afghanistan because I was going to give a history lesson, but then I started talking about Prince Harry, who was flying Apaches in Helmand near Kandahar. So I'm thinking, when we were at Kandahar, working with the Canadians and the Brits. And the nice thing about having the Canadians, because we talk a lot and you'll hear a lot about these bases that are built up, we have some amenities on base. Like, we will homestead the fuck out of a place. We don't need to live like Spartans. We'll homestead. We got Burger Kings. One thing that the Canadians brought were Tony Horton's donuts. Oh, God. Moment of silence there. But, yeah, so Tony Horton's donuts, and then the Brits had a place called the Shaky Shack. And that's where you go, because they're realistic, along with the Germans. They would actually bring beer. The Germans wouldn't leave base in their part, wherever they were up north, near Mazar-e Sharif or some shit. They wouldn't leave base, but one of the biggest problems with the Germans was that they drank too much and they wouldn't work, which is, hey, if you want to be a bear, you be a grizzly bear. But we went to the Shaky Shack. We're working with the SBS and the Kansoff guys, and something happened with one of our guys. They were doing some sort, it wasn't an initiation, it was more of a celebratory bong, a beer bong, by the way. We're not animals, a beer bong. And someone was doing something, and people sort of looking around, and someone, I don't know why, but like in the packages that we would have sent to us from the States, other than coffee creamer or, whatever, one thing that we really like to have was hot sauce. It's just a good taste of home. And no matter how bad, and believe it or not, there's better food off base with the Afghans than on base, even though who can beat a Whopper? Pound for pound, still Big Mac's a Big Mac. But, France, they call it La Big Mac. And they don't know what the fuck a quarter pound is. But hot sauce, one of the Canadian guys got this shit sent to him, and I forget the name of it. But it was something. It wasn't from Canada, but a Canadian had it sent to him, and it was like Carolina Reaper pepper, ghost pepper, one of those things that like comes in an eye drop, and it's like 1 million or 2 million Scoville units. And I didn't prepare for this story at all, so I don't know what a Scoville is. It's probably named after Dr. Scoville, who had hot sauce. But there was something along the lines of like, it's an eyedropper for a vat of chili. And we had a couple of our celebration beer bongs, and they one of our guys named Hawk, they challenged someone that can't eat a teaspoon of this sauce, and he did. This is kind of I've trained quite a bit with the Canadians. I didn't really go to war with them. This is as close as I've ever been to war, because Hawk took that down. His face did turn red eventually before the vomiting ensued, and then we had to bring him out on a stretcher to the medic. So they got their work done there. But yeah, Horton's, Kansoff, great dudes, nice guys, polite. They'll kill you. SBS as always. I do need to interview some SBS guys. I've got a few ideas. I want to interview some Brits from different branches and Aussies, and I will go to Australia for that interview because that's just a great spot if I can get in, because that place has been on lockdown since their democratically elected government told them what to do, those folks, which is awesome. And so now we're jumping around. Afghanistan, we talked about conspiracy theories, and then we talked about government just a second ago because I brought it up because I'm the only one talking. Conspiracy theory thing. We were talking about the conspiracy theories and all that shit. And I was saying how I don't believe a lot of them, however entertaining, and I do love some of the footage, and who fucking knows, right? Because you can't, I mean, conspiracy theories are one thing, but conspiracies that turn out to be the truth, that's just the truth, and that's when people start protecting each other and talking about alternative facts and all that bullshit and misinformations. And like once the Clintons, period. Oh God, I don't want to die of suicide next week. But once they realized that saying Russian disinformation worked. They just kept saying it all the time, Russia, Russia, Russia. So a lot of those conspiracies aren't conspiracies; they're actually real, like the ones with American agencies spying on Americans and trying to interfere with elections. I don't want to get political, but come on. Anyway, some of that stuff is some of that stuff's legit, and that's the big thing right now with the classified documents. Have you seen that? Oh, yeah. President Joe Biden, the most popular president in the history of the motherfucking galaxy, his lawyers found apparently some classified documents in one of his places near an office because at $500 an hour, I'm hiring my attorneys to clean my place. But they found him or whatever, and it was something to do with before the election, and they didn't find him, or they might have found him, but someone hit him. Whatever, classified documents. They turn up now after the elections, after the Republicans have a Speaker of the House. I'm not getting into it. Whatever. Classified documents. He was hiding them. And if you notice, like last year, this summer, they found some shit at Mar-a-Lago for Donald Trump, and that was, the media, the honest media that doesn't say the same shit on every fucking station. Like there are people that refuse to go out and try to diversify and find different sources. There are people in this country that really didn't realize the border was open until recently, and they still don't know because they cleaned it up. I talked about the lipstick on a pig. They shine it up before the admiral gets there. The put the flowers in the shit. And they cleaned up El Paso. President Biden went down there. That brought the news with them, but there was nothing happening. So a lot of people really don't know the border is as big of a problem as it is, and that's an entire episode too with the dangers of the border in Mexico and people that are paying attention are asking why our military is not fighting the cartels, which is a very dangerous thing, by the way. You're getting into a whole new bag of cats with that one. Because you got to that open border and those cartels, you've seen what the cartels do. And I don't even want to talk about them. They'll come after you. So I'm not touching that. I saw one the other day where a cartel guy called a dispatcher and said, why are you guys coming after our guys? I know where you live. We're getting you first. You back off. We have a deal type shit. Hey, whatever. But the politicians and a lot of the media don't tell the truth, if you can believe that. And then some of the conspiracies are real. Hillary Clinton with her 30,000 emails that she said were just about yoga and some about her daughter's wedding. 30,000. It's a good fucking wedding. It's a lot of yoga, man. My downward dog is off. 30,000. They had software, I guess, called BleachBit, and the server, and literally shattered it with hammers because that's how you act when you're innocent. But the documents came out, and nothing's going to happen. Don't bullshit yourself. I know it's the phrase that pays and the fucking song of the day right now. Nothing's going to happen. Like you see, there was some these politicians, man. There was some reporters outside of certain offices. Like Nancy Pelosi came out of her office, and a reporter's there, and so her little cookie eating face walked up to it because it's a camera, and then they asked about the Biden classified, and she kind of and walked away because they've gotten to the point where they don't even realize that they're elected by the people. They answer to the people. Now they're the bosses, but they don't give a shit. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen to Donald Trump either. They're trying, and if they had anything on Donald Trump, they would have nailed him a long time ago. But they made such a big stink, and now it's not a big deal. And this is where the realization that pay attention and look. The powerful people protect powerful people. They're not going to end up getting in trouble. Joe Biden's not getting raided by the FBI. No one. The people that go to jail and go to solitary confinement without even really being accused are the people that, like idiots, stormed the Capitol, even though they're being let in by the Capitol Police. Don't say that, though. That's a conspiracy, even though it happened. Why don't they release all the footage? They don't have to, because fuck you, the voter. We don't need you to vote. Your vote doesn't count when we can hoard them. So the classified documents, whatever, we're going to have something brand new to yap about, and someone's going to be all up in arms, and the jowls will be flapping. It's reprehensible, blah, blah, fucking blah. So anyway, but they do that. A lot of people are using classified documents, and, the greatest threat to democracy since the Civil War was a fucking dude with face paint and a buffalo hat. So we do jump around quite a bit from subject to subject because it is a mad, mad world, crazy times, from food shortages to are they going to get rid of our gas-powered grills? And if you are not stocked up with emergency food, maybe a $200 discount will change your mind. My Patriot Supply is the nation's largest preparedness company, and they're knocking $200 off their 3-month emergency food kit when you go to preparewithrob.com. This 3-month food kit gives you a wide variety of delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners, drinks, snacks, enough food to feed one person for 3 solid months. But be sure to get one kit per member of your family so you do not run out. The food stays fresh for up to 25 years with no refrigeration necessary. It will save the day whenever the day comes, and it can. But you'll save $200 per kit if you act now. Go to preparewithrob.com, and your order might just ship in the same day. You'll get free shipping too. Everything arrives in unmarked boxes for your privacy, but don't wait until it's too late. Get it today. Go to preparewithrob.com and save $200. That is preparewithrob.com. These are some combat stories. Some are fun, some are funny, some are not so funny. But unlike combat, parenting is something you got yourself into. The government didn't lead you there. So dirty diapers, screaming fits, and sleepless nights. Parenthood is not for the faint of heart. Trust me, I know. But Tactical Baby Gear was founded by parents for parents with kit that you're proud to carry. You'll overcome every spit up, blowout, and meltdown along the way. Prepare for whatever parenting leads you with cool kit like a fully customizable tactical diaper bag. It's ready. But be ready because it could get messy. This stuff is highly practical, highly functional, very cool, extremely high quality, and it's always ready. So we're talking diaper bags, baby carriers, strollers, wagons, everything in between. Lifetime warranty. So go check out tacticalbabygear.com and save 15% when you use code THEOPERATOR. Tacticalbabygear.com, code THEOPERATOR. God, guns, and diapers, baby. So, so that's fun. But that's the classified stuff. And even, from what I've seen, and maybe I'm just smart enough to carry a gun and a sledgehammer, and I'm not one of the smart guys that got to see everything, but like to hear these people, especially the talking heads on television, they're reading a script that's given to them by their certain political party, and they're just talking about these secrets that we can't give away and national security. And we got congressmen sleeping with Chinese spies. We have Chinese spies driving senators around. China's infiltrated our universities. China's got it. We're not giving anything away, but as long as they can argue and then go have cocktails with each other, they being the politicians, because they do. I've seen them, whatever. Judgy. But the classified stuff and the encryption is a funny story because they found out a lot of stuff. They being the smart folks. I like to make light of a lot of stuff because, I've been to the wars. I've seen the shit. I live with it. Whatever. But there are people that actually do stuff, and I don't mean to make light of it, but that's just kind of my nature. When we finished the Bin Laden raid and all that stuff that we gathered, when we stayed on station for a couple extra, 14 minutes or whatever we did, we were gathering stuff because we found 3 different offices, a lot of different stuff. And a lot of the stuff that they found, called the Bin Laden papers, gave us an inside view of what was happening. Because I guess what was going on, and we found this out because of our reaction, our response to 9/11, it was so overwhelming that we basically shattered Al-Qaeda, and they didn't realize we were going to do it until we did it. And they didn't know what to do with it. They were in hiding, but other groups around the world were sort of buying shares of Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda really didn't mind, the leadership didn't mind if they were getting credit as long as they kind of all agreed, but they needed to communicate because there was Al-Qaeda everywhere. If you recall, we invaded Iraq. We did in 2003. And so Al-Qaeda in Iraq started up, and that was Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who turned into the leader. He was the one that made the beheadings all popular, horrible shit. But according to his religion, he's getting when Al-Qaeda when they attack, they other than killing a bunch of people, they also want a bunch of eyes on it to see it, because you kill people, but you also get the exposure. So they needed to communicate. So you got Al-Qaeda in Iraq, you got Ayman al-Zawahiri and Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, you got dudes up in Waziristan in the mountains, and then you have there's other offshoots of certain Sunni insurgent groups, and again, I'm going to get into that later, but Al-Qaeda was Sunni, other ones, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIS Sunni, and then there's a place in Africa right around Algeria, and it was called Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb. And that's North Africa, some of the mountains over into Mali, Tunisia, Libya, stuff like that. And that's where those dudes are. And they're seeing some of the credit that Al-Qaeda in Iraq is getting, and they're also getting a little bit of the funding, because it does come down to little shit like, they would pay for martyrs' families and their wives and stuff. They're getting money for funding and travel exposure, but they need to communicate, and they're not necessarily working for bin Laden, but they sort of need to talk to him. And so right around 2004, they got their computer dorks too. Like Al-Qaeda has geeks, like we do. Like, what up, nerd? But except in Arabic. And the jihadi media started working on this encryption stuff, and it was in 2007 came out, and they called it our version of the secrets of jihadis. And so it was something that they came up with where if it wasn't that big of a file, they could share it, but not necessarily send it, because we have bigger nerds. We have better people that can intercept and find out what they're doing. And they found about this encryption that they're sending to each other because they want to communicate. And even UBL warned, we learned from the bin Laden papers, he didn't want the brothers to get complacent. So we don't want to be sending shit to each other, but we still need credit to build the Al-Qaeda brand. Here's where it gets fun. We're not going to do much of a history lesson here. We're gonna do one of those humanity of war things, because Al-Qaeda and a lot of the papers that we found, they were talking a lot about the suffering that they physically and mentally go through. Because, I mean, yes, we go back to Bagram and we have karaoke night and green bean coffee, but these motherfuckers are out in caves and it's snowy and it's shitty. And there were some points where some of the dudes were married and they wanted to bring, they were encouraged to keep their wives and families in the cities because they're less likely to get bombed, but some of them would want to bring their families with them. So these are the Islamic Maghreb guys in the mountains want to maybe bring their families up. Most of the guys were not married. Some of them were. Some guys would bring their families with them in Waziristan. And as opposed to sometimes running when they needed to flee, they would stick around with their family and fight to the death, because whatever. These are family things you really don't think these goofy little terrorists have to deal with, but that was it. And they're finding this in the papers. And one of the concerns that they had, this is like a dude talking to Sheikh Ayman al-Zawahiri. He was saying the poor celibate brothers and their overbearing situation. And you can almost, so these dudes are sending this Islamic jihadi stuff, and you can almost hear him blushing. But they're talking about, what does it say here? It says, the view of the brothers, extenuating circumstances, we do not object to letting them know it would be permissible to masturbate. Wow. I didn't see that one coming. So apparently some of these Quran thumpers, just like our Bible thumpers, they say that masturbating is bad. So you can't do it. So they're writing letters back and forth, and they're trying to qualify the proposal in order to let these jihadis jerk off. What does this say? Here's one of their letters, and this is some notes that I've taken. This practice is not customary, and it's rather embarrassing. These are jihadis talking. Embarrassed. They're going to blow themselves up. Motherfuckers are embarrassed. So it says, the brothers in the Islamic and jihad movements are not accustomed to broaching this issue. It could be misunderstood. It may have negative implications to which we have not been attentive. What do you think? Should we avoid proposing it altogether and prescribe continuing exhaustive patience and fasting instead? So these guys are in the mountains with, I'm assuming because of the cold and other circumstances, extreme cases of blue balls. And they're talking about, like, the guys up in North Waziristan, should we, we're denying their request because we're running out of money because we got run out of Afghanistan. Should we just let these guys jerk off, right? And that's what they're talking about. And they're like literally talking about the different ways they call each other brothers. Like, everyone in the Jihad is a brother and sister. And it depends on if you call them Sheikh brother or whatever. And they're calling, like, they're literally writing these back and forth. And they're calling, like, as opposed to just saying, hey man, can I rub one out? Put a tie on the door so you don't walk in, because I'm assuming you can't lock a cave. But they're calling them a pragmatic political approach. They're talking about masturbating. So apparently it's bad, and you need to get permission from UBL to jerk off. Boy, am I out of line. So that just struck me as funny that, even there's I saw another one what I like about this job that I have of having a podcast is I like study all the time, but it might not look like I'm studying. It's like I'm on my phone looking at Instagram, and the wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm studying, obviously." And so one of the famous things that they found on in Bin Laden's house was porn, and you may have heard that. And that's why they kind of brought it up. It's very sensitive that Bin Laden had porn with some herbal Viagra and stuff like that, but they didn't say he was jerking off. Now, he did have 3 wives with him, so I don't know. And that's another funny story, too, is he left the 2 old ones downstairs, kept the young one, Amal, upstairs, whatever. But they were saying he wasn't jerking off to it. He just happened to have it. He said there wasn't necessarily porn, but there was links, like screenshots of suggestive dating sites with some pictures, and it's like, yeah, that's why I walked in on Bin Laden holding his phone up with one hand. What was the other one doing? But yeah, that was the whole thing. And I guess what they were doing was I don't know, but I guess to cover for him, they were saying they were hiding missions encrypted on those discs. But anyway, I was studying Instagram, and I came across this reel where it was now I'm not trying to lump all religions together, but we have what the Brits would call goodies and baddies. And one of these dudes I'm assuming was a baddie, was a Christian preacher. And I walked onto a sermon of this preacher in front of his crew of people. And this dude is like straight up apologizing, and he's telling you that when you masturbate, you're donating sperm to the masturbation demon. Or whatever. So it's demonic, and he says masturbation to the point where, like, I'm by myself and I'm uncomfortable watching this poor dude, and he's got the typical TV evangelical tears rolling down his face. He's talking about the masturbation demon and how it's bad, and apparently Al Qaeda thinks it's bad. So that's what we have in common, is you can't jerk off. And this preacher's up there, and he said even if you're married, you can't do it, because something that you're enjoying, you should be with your wife, and you do it by yourself, you're just having sex with the demon. And I'm intrigued, and I'm like, I got to stick around for the end of this. And he goes, yeah, just the other day I was helping a 50-year-old married man exercise the demon of masturbation. I'm like, and there it is. Because the whole time I was thinking, what did you get busted doing that you need to get up on this damn, get out of your Ferrari and get on the pulpit there and start telling us how bad it is to touch ourselves? And then it comes out, oh, you and the dude, we weren't fucking each other. We're just having a class about demons. Okay, busted anyway, so we're bad. So that was this, it struck me then that, see, I don't know if you know this about us in the U.S. military, and for you veterans listening, you do know this about us. It's not that big of a deal. If you're by yourself, you're on, you're over at Fob Shank, you're not going out on a mission, it's snowing, hey, whatever. Like, I've done turnovers with Red Squadron used to turn over with Gold Squadron, and I would roll up there. And Gold Squadron was known for not necessarily cleaning up after themselves. And turnovers where, like, here's where you go, here's the fucking helo, here's what, blah, blah, blah. These are the showers, this is your bed. And the turnover, you would think, especially being a good shipmate, like I consider myself, I'm going to clean up. No. The porn I have over there, yeah, I'm going to leave it behind for them because the internet connection is not that great over here, and I don't need you wasting your time. But, like, Gold was so bad, like, I would find dive socks so, like, if I threw it against the wall, it would shatter like a dunk from Daryl Dawkins, like Dr. Dunkenstein rolling up there and like turbo saxophonic delight dunk. So anyway, so that's some of the stuff that went down in Afghanistan. Apparently, Al Qaeda and some preachers and a couple of imams don't like jerking off. Some guys in the military, sorry to break it to you, some of us do. So on that, we do need to get into the Bin Laden papers. I want to get into the history of Al Qaeda. I'm glad that we got a, for lack of a better term, I'm glad we got to touch on a few different subjects that not necessarily aren't part of the global war on tourism. But yeah, that's so that's it. We're going to get into it eventually in the Bin Laden papers. I even want to get into the rise of Al Qaeda in Iraq and Abu Musab al-Zarqawi and then ISIS. Just the way that the different sects of Islam work, and like someone like claiming to be the caliph in one place and then they didn't necessarily run it over the headshed over there because they're too worried about catching the... Anyway, so the point that I'm getting at is keep your feet on the ground. For God's sake, stop touching yourself and you're never out of the fight.